Spain and the UK's new car markets might have seen a reversal in fortunes. The automotive industry has reacted to the latest tariff news, and the EU Parliament has voted for a change to its CO2 emissions targets. This is the Automotive Update, presented by AutoVista24. I'm AutoVista24 editor Tom Geggus, the latest edition of the Automotive Update. I'm here to give you the headlines from AutoVista24 and the wider automotive industry over the last 7 days. This week, AutoVista24 has published news on major European new car markets. To discuss the latest registration trends with me is special content editor Phil Curry.
Hi Tom, great to be here.
Great to have you here, Phil. This week you covered the Spanish and UK new car markets, two of Europe's big five in terms of volume. What I thought was quite interesting reading your pieces is that the two markets seem to have a change of pace when it comes to growth. So maybe you could walk us through how this has come about.
Absolutely. Well, the UK was originally one of the strongest markets in Europe. It posted positive figures for 2 straight years until August 2024, when it recorded its first dip in quite a while. Since then, it's only seen 2 positive months, September and March, which are both plate change months in the country, which usually correspond to higher registration numbers. However, Spain has been posting consistent growth over time, and so far in 2025, it's the only market in the Big Five in Europe to be up year on year across the first 4 months.
Right, so what's driving this change, do you think?
Well, it could be a number of factors, but some of the main ones in the UK is uncertainty around the ZEV mandate, the zero emission vehicle mandate. That may have led to manufacturers holding back some hybrid or fossil fuel cars in order to push zero emission vehicles out to consumers and increase their overall fleet target towards the percentage that is required by the ZEV mandate. Now in Spain it's a little bit different. In October last year, the Valencia region experienced extreme storms and flooding. And what we've seen there is that the vehicles that are being replaced in that region are actually helping to contribute to the higher registration numbers. But ultimately, Spain has been driving growth for a while. It was very good last year in terms of its registration figures, breaching the 1 million mark for the first time since COVID-19.
Both countries seem to have contrasting approaches to EV incentives as well, Phil. How have you seen this affect their markets?
Well, the UK hasn't had electric vehicle incentives for quite some time, but since the 1st of April, things have got slightly worse. The UK government has announced that vehicle excise duty is now applicable on electric vehicles, and that's going to cost drivers £195 or €230 a year, although the first year of registration, it will cost just £10. For those EVs registered before the 1st of April 2017, it's a flat rate of £20 for VED. In addition, the expensive car supplement is also applicable on electric vehicles for the first time. This means buyers of new EVs from the 1st of April onwards, with a final cost of £40,000 or over, will need to pay £425 a year between the 2nd and 6th years following registration. Now, as this is only applicable from vehicles registered from last month onwards, it may have affected growth in the UK. For the first 3 months of 2025, battery electric vehicle registrations were up 40% or more each month. In April, there was still growth, but that dropped to 8%. There's also no other government support, despite the UK's industry body, the SMMT, calling for a reduction in VAT on battery electric vehicles, an increase in the expensive car supplement threshold, and VAT equalisation on public and domestic charging.
But it seems that Spain has gone the other way.
Indeed, Spain announced that the Moves Free incentive scheme, which provides subsidies for battery electric vehicle and plug-in hybrid vehicle purchases, will be renewed until the end of December. And it's been retroactively applied from the 1st of January as well, meaning cars bought earlier this year are now applicable. This offers up to €7,000 for BEV or PEV purchases if the buyer is scrapping another car at the same point. Now, BEV and PHEV registrations have been strong in the last few months in Spain, up 78% and 80% respectively in April, but it still equates to less than 10,000 registrations in a month for each powertrain. Spain is traditionally a lower volume country, but it is moving in the right direction.
So do you think the April results are an indicator of what to expect in the months ahead?
Well, yes and no. It gives us a good idea based on the recent changes, the moves free introduction and the introduction of VED and the expensive car supplement in the UK. So we can see the impact of incentives and disruptors. But with Easter in April this year, the month is being compared to a strong one from 2024. The early Easter in that year meant that April saw a bounce back, much higher figures than we may normally see. So May will give us a true indication of how these changes have affected those markets.
Well, thank you very much for sharing your insights, Phil. Now, elsewhere on AutoVista 24 this week, Tom Hooker also covered the latest developments in the French new car market. To read his article, as well as Phil's coverage of Spain and the UK, head over to AutoVista 24 via the show notes. And of course, while you're there, make sure you're signed up for our email. That way you'll get the latest news straight to your inbox. And subscribe to the AutoVista 24 podcast wherever you listen to us. And check out AutoVista 24's YouTube channel too. You'll find our What Is Explainer videos, launch report series, and webinar recordings all on our channel. I'll leave a link in the show notes. It has been yet another big week in tariff news. On Thursday, the EU launched a consultation on a list of US imports which could be subject to countermeasures if EU-US negotiations don't result in a mutually beneficial outcome and the removal of US tariffs. The list covers imports worth €95 billion, which includes vehicles and automotive parts. The EU is also launching a World Trade Organization dispute against the US on its universal tariffs and on its tariffs on cars and parts. Meanwhile, the UK announced a new trade deal with the US, which will see tariffs on cars fall from 27.5% to 10%. This is subject to a quota of 100,000 units, but the government pointed out that this is almost the total the UK exported to the US in 2024. They went on to say that this would save hundreds of millions a year for JLR alone. Mike Hawes, the SMMT's chief executive, said the agreement to reduce car tariffs on UK car exports into the US is great news for the industry and consumers. However, the American Automotive Policy Council, or AAPC, representing Ford, General Motors and Stellantis, voiced its disappointment at the news. Governor Matt Blunt, AAPC president, said, "Under this deal, it will now be cheaper to import a UK vehicle with very little US content than a USMCA-compliant vehicle from Mexico or Canada that is half American parts. This hurts American automakers, suppliers, and auto workers." Earlier this week, Ford outlined a $1.5 billion or €1.34 billion hit to its EBIT due to tariffs. Toyota factored in the tariff impact on its operating income at 180 billion yen, equal to €1.1 billion in April and May. However, according to Reuters reporting, BMW expects US car tariffs to decline from July based on its contacts with US officials. While it did acknowledge the tariffs would have a notable impact on its second quarter results, the carmaker still had a more upbeat outlook. On Thursday, the European Parliament voted for a change to the bloc's CO2 emission standards for new cars and vans. The proposal passed with a good majority, 458 votes for, 101 votes against, and 14 abstentions. The change means the CO2 emissions targets of 93.6 grams per kilometre for car makers can be averaged across 2025, 2026 and 2027. The draft law now requires formal approval by the Council, which endorsed the same text on the 7th of May 2025. If you'd like to explore today's stories in more depth, head to the show notes and click the link to our companion article on AutoVista 24. A big thanks to AutoVista 24's special content editor, Phil Curry, for appearing and co-producing this episode. Additional thanks go to AutoVista 24 journalist Tom Hooker. The music was Better Find a Solution Fast by Richard Ames. Thank you for listening to the AutoVista 24 podcast.